Hello, thanks for joining us on the Synergy Trainer Talks live feed. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about the Premack Principle. So the Premack Principle is essentially a principle in behavior science that is commonly referred to as the grandma rule. So eating your veggies before you get to have your dessert. The short version of this is, can we get a behavior that is less likely to be rewarded by a behavior that is more likely? This is Yoshi with me today to demo the Premack Principle and how to use a release cue to build some really amazing Premack behaviors in your dog. Premack is really about what we might call impulse control and being able to build in a little bit of, I really want that thing, but I'm willing to work for the thing in order to get it. Yes. And so Yoshi's confused about who I'm talking to right now. So I wanted to talk a little about the concept here. Essentially, the Premack Principle, let's think about it in terms of two different behaviors. So there's a less likely behavior, and then there is a more likely behavior. So if I'm out at the park with this particular dog right here, I'm going to grab her a little bit of cheese. With this particular dog right here, if she sees a squirrel, the more likely behavior will be that she is going to chase the squirrel. And in fact, I would probably bet a large amount of money that if there is no other alternative cue or behavior that she is being requested to do, she's going to chase that squirrel. The less likely behavior is that she will sit quietly and look at me while the squirrel is present. So what I have done with this particular dog, who has a very high prey drive, is that I have been able to use the highly likely behavior of chasing the squirrel to reinforce the less likely behavior of sitting and looking at me. And the way that I first did that is by adding a release cue or a go-ahead cue to chase the squirrel in the first place. So I'm going to do a little bit of demo of how to build a release cue for your dog. And you don't need a whole lot to do this. All you need is your dog. You need some relatively high-value treats and or your dog's favorite toy. So I'm going to demo with both things. I have one of Yoshi's favorite toys here, and I also have some cheese, just some shredded cheese. She's usually pretty willing to work for a kibble, but I kind of wanted something extra special because the idea of the Premack Principle is that whatever you're using to build desire in your dog, and that's desire for anything. That's desire to chase the squirrel, desire to go say hi to that dog across the park. Maybe it's to go say hi to that neighbor friend that they really, really like. Any of that needs to be desirable enough that we're really working with that energy and real drive. It's not real life dog training unless we're building the same kind of energy and drive that Yoshi might have for that squirrel at the park. So I'm going to use a really awesome tug toy that she likes, and I'm also going to use some shredded cheese. So Yoshi obviously already has a release cue, but I am going to start back at level 1 with this release cue so that you can see a little bit of what it looks like to start at the very basics. And the way that we teach a release cue is entirely through scaffolding. So I'm going to make it really easy at first, and I'm going to pair the release cue with the things that she really, really loves. So got some cheese here. I'm going to take a handful of cheese. And all I'm going to do, get her set up here, is gently hold on to her collar. And then I am going to place some cheese in front of her. And if she tries to get the cheese, that's fine. I'm just going to restrain her a little bit. So now there's some cheese. You want it? Ready? Ready? And then I'm going to say her release cue and let go at the exact same time. Ready, break! And then she gets to have the cheese. See if I'm going to move my computer here to set this up a little bit easier for you to see both of us. That is better. I'm going to repeat that again. Remember, I'm not asking for any impulse control here. Putting some cheese on the ground. Ready. I'm going to get her excited. She really likes the word ready because it means something exciting is about to happen. And break. Her release cue is break. You can use break, free, go ahead, hasta la victoria siempre. Whatever you want to use is totally fine. I will say I generally don't like using the word okay as a release cue because we say okay a little bit too often in our regular lives. If you want to use okay, you can maybe use something like okay go, or freedom, or whatever you want to use that is super exciting to your dog. Release cues should be high energy and they should be pretty high arousal for your dog. So I'm going to demonstrate that one more time. Now we're going to go the other direction here. Put a little cheese on the ground. Ready? Ready? Oh, that was hard. Ready? Break. Good girl. You're good. All right, so now I'm going to show, move her butt out of the way here. Now I'm going to show the next level here. The next level, after you've done this kind of Premack excitement, just that very first level, really for a lot longer than you think you need it. I actually want your dog to be pulling against their harness or collar. By the way, if you have a dog that is touch sensitive and doesn't like having their collar grabbed, if they shy away from you, you can also just kind of block them this way. Ready? Break! And just use your arm to block them. We want your dog to enjoy this process. It should be fun. The next level that we're going to do is now she's excited. I like that. We're going to do a little bit of, can she offer any impulse control without necessarily being restrained? So she offered it down. That's really nice. I'm going to go ahead and let go of her collar, and then I'm going to give her her release cue. Ready? Break! Good girl. So again, the second stage there of the Premack cue and of building this release cue should come long after. I really don't want to ask for any impulse control until I have that dog really driving toward the food or the toy. I liked that she started to move quickly toward it. She was pulling against my hand. Sometimes, we've been doing Premack games for years, but sometimes with Yoshi I'll go back to that very first level and really get that drive and that desire. Because if Yoshi doesn't desire the thing as much as she desires that distraction in the environment, then I'm not really doing any real-life dog training. I'm just doing a fun trick, which is cool, but if I want her to recall away from that squirrel at the park, I really have to get that drive and that excitement. So the next step is that I would really like to start adding in, okay, so you're willing to wait until you hear your release cue, but can you think when something is in front of you that you really, really like? This concept is about thinking in a high state of arousal. So this dog struggles with high states of arousal. When she is triggered and excited by a squirrel or another dog or her favorite ball flying through the air, her ability to think kind of shuts down. And there's a lot of neurological reasons for that. It happens to us too, in terms of when our sympathetic nervous system is triggered. But what we can't do is build a dog's ability to think in that high state of arousal. And so for her, what that has meant is a lot of games in Premack. And so she's ready to play now. She's like, let's do it. So I'm going to pull her toy out, and I'm going to show you what a more advanced level of Premack might look like when your dog has been doing this for a while and has a lot of value in their release cue. So I'm going to take her toy, which is going to escalate her arousal level pretty high. I'm going to offer a little bit of restraint to get her excited, and then I'm going to throw the toy across the room. And then I'm going to ask her for some behaviors. And now remember, this is a higher level of Premack, that until you have a really solid release cue and you've built in some behavior chains outside of this situation, then you can start using it. I don't recommend to jump right into this because, again, we want to build that drive and desire, and we want to make sure that that release cue is super solid before we start asking for behaviors and then accidentally set our dog up to fail. By the way, if your dog self-releases and doesn't wait for their cue, it's totally fine. Don't freak out, don't yell at your dog, just laugh it off and then try and stop it the next time. Sometimes that means racing your dog to the food or toy and see if you can get there first. So first I'm going to do this with some food, and then I'll show you the toy. So I'm going to place some cheese right here. And you can see that she's offering pretty good impulse control. She knows not to go for it until I give her that release cue. Then I'm going to ask for a behavior. Ready? Middle. Good. Sit. Nice. Touch. Break. And now she gets to access the food. So this is an example of how we can get our dogs to start really valuing those behaviors that we're asking them to do that often seem to be in conflict with what they really want. So the value of the Premack Principle in a release cue is that it actually inserts you into every single thing your dog loves. It is incredibly powerful. If instead of thinking about all of those distractions in the environment as a problem for you and your dog, instead they just become part of your training process. And so what that means for me is that every time that a squirrel shows up at the park, or every time there's a dog across the field, it's a training opportunity for Yoshi to learn to think in arousal. It is not necessarily a problem. It's not, oh, I gotta deal with this, or we gotta get out of here, or my dog's gonna lunge and bark and it's gonna be embarrassing. Instead, it's, oh yay, we get to practice behavior change and high arousal, and I get to release my dog potentially to something they really love, or I get to come up with a substitution. So what that might look like is what I'm about to show you, and that is, in higher states of arousal, what does it look like to get a little bit of that control? So I'm gonna use a toy that Yoshi really likes. You can see she really enjoys this toy. This is actually a rabbit skin toy that pretty much resembles the squirrels that she so loves to chase. Come. Okay, hop it up. Wait. Oh, it's tough. You can see how much harder it is for her to maintain that default impulse control when this toy is involved. So I'm going to place the toy gently because I don't have a lot of space in this room. And I want, oh, sneaky. I know, so exciting. And then I'm going to see if we can get another one of those behaviors. Ready? Touch. Too hard. So Yoshi was not able to offer that behavior because she's so excited. Ready? Sit. Too much. Touch. Break. Good girl. Good job. We're going to try that one more time. And I loved that I was able to show you when she's not able to offer that kind of, she wanted to, she was still offering impulse control, but she could not do these basic behaviors that she generally has pretty well. You want it? You get it. So I tried to give her something that she could be successful at. So if your dog doesn't perform the behavior and you get that deer in the headlights look, that means that you're doing it right. So that's what we want, is to access that space where everything disappears from our dog's brain and they're not able to think. And so in that moment where Yoshi started and didn't know what to do with her body, that's where I really want to get her to start being able to think in arousal. And so let's try it one more time and see, now that she knows what game we're playing again, if we can get a little bit more cue control and arousal. Yeah. Stop. It's very exciting. Pop it up. Middle. Break! Yeah, good girl! Alright, so what I really like to do is take the behavior that I know my dog has a huge amount of value in. And Yoshi has a huge amount of value in her middle cue, which is going between my legs. I really like that behavior too, because if I ask for a middle when she's out in front of me and there's a squirrel across the field, she has to turn away from that squirrel and stop her stare in order to offer that behavior. Cool. So those are just a little bit of the scaffolding of what it looks like to start to build that cue control and arousal. If we think about this toy representing all of those things that you can't recall your dog from, that your dog loses their mind when they see, the things that your dog lunges and barks at or runs off into the woods and disappears for 3 hours for, if we think about how we can create that in our training sessions, we can have really amazing control in relationship with our dogs. Instead of us depriving them of the things they love, we can actually be the access to everything that they love. Now I'm sweating, out of breath, which means that I've done training for the day. If you're not sweating and out of breath and you're not training, or asking our dogs to work, we should also be working pretty hard. Thanks for joining us, and please know too that the Premack Principle and a little bit of cue control and arousal and a little bit of release cue is also super important for building calmness and arousal up, down in our dogs, the ability to have an off switch. And if you're interested in learning more about that, we are offering a Capturing Calmness webinar. Please check our page and our website to access how to register for that. We're going to teach you how to have that nice off switch in any dog. This is a very high arousal, high prey drive pit bull. She's not an easy dog to train. She's not an easy dog to get that off switch with. And yet we're all working from home and she's sleeping most of the day. So how do you build that kind of calmness in your dog? You can come and find out. The other thing is we're going to be offering a webinar specifically on the Premack Principle so that you can start getting that kind of cue control and impulse control in your dog. So please stay tuned, and we hope to see you in class. Have a great day.